Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another of our Webinar Wednesdays. Webinar Wednesday number 284, hosted by the CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. Good afternoon, I'm Kelly Bearden. I am the director of the SBDC here in Bakersfield, and I am also the host for today's webinar. And we've got a good one today, following up on one we did 16 weeks ago on our first on the subject of artificial intelligence and how it can work for small businesses and how it is working right now. So we'll bring in Justin Powers in just a little bit, but first I got a little bit of stuff to get through today. Thank you for letting me tell you what's up today, June 19th, 2023. And we're going to get into the details, get a lot of details, interesting in the AI area. Artificial intelligence is going to come into play today. So AI gets a good detail today, but also we got to get to talking a little bit about this disaster relief, the physical damage for the winter storms that still are having an impact throughout the central part of California. That is going to be due tomorrow. So if you had physical damage, this is pretty much the last call in order to get that done, unless that is extended. Hoping that's going to get extended because there's still more damage being found by the day. We're going to talk a little bit about the not physical damage, but the economic injury portion of disaster loans. And our segment, our in-house segment on Capital Quarter that we go through about every week, we still love the EIDL. We'll explain why. More info on the City of Bakersfield Grant Program, the Entrepreneurship Program, the COVID-19 funds. Yes, there's COVID-19 funds. This from the American Rescue Plan, the last bit of COVID relief that came out. We have more info on the city program as it's being unveiled, and also more resources to assist you if you qualify in getting that money. Also, economic corner, it's just going to settle today, our economic corner, just on a simple poll question. Not too much going on economic corner wise. We'll have our resident economist, Dr. Mark Evans, in soon, and he will get into more of the in-depth economic information and leave us freelance economic guys kind of on the sidelines. Our community calendar and SBDC toolbox will be represented as well. We'll take your questions. Please put your questions in the Q&A box. Our producer, Maureen Busher-Dang, will be working in the chat box and providing back relief behind the scenes today. So if you have any questions for any of the production side, what's going on, feel free to put that in the chat. Questions in the Q&A, we'll take those at the very end, and a poll. So right now, let's go to the poll. And we do have two poll questions, two nice, simple poll questions today. And our first poll question I launch is that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is investigating ChatGPT. And there's a number of interested groups, but what group is less concerned about AI at this time? Is it us small businesses, consumer groups, labor unions, or is it privacy groups? So the least concerned is what I'm looking for. Which one of us are least concerned about the impacts that AI is going to have on the society in general, and a lot of the factors going on? We have a lot of people that are really concerned about a lot of things. I think this FTC investigation, to try not to give away the question, but is actually is seeing if individuals are harmed when they're actually represented in a actual AI finding. So if you Google something in ChatGPT, if your name comes up, So which group is less impacted by ChatGPT from the perspective of, the damage that can be done? So maybe I didn't phrase that the best I could have. But we do have 55% of you participating. So last chance to get in. The FTC has been reached out by a number of different groups that are concerned about many things that are going on in AI. So let's go ahead with 70% of you in the poll, and not the greatest poll question I've ever asked, because only 20% of you got it right, us small businesses. Yes, we're concerned that the impacts that AI might have on our business, but most of those are more positive. And I was looking for more of the negative aspects, of which the largest group you identified was consumer groups. Yes, definitely. Labor unions are concerned about wages and also working conditions that AI might bring in, and privacy groups worried about how people's names are going to be represented, kind of launch that FTC. So let's go to poll question number 2. So poll question number 2 for today is going to be this question. So a little preface, I did jump out of, economic corner for today, made it very, very simple, made it into a poll question. And that is inflation in the Eurozone. So in Europe, it was 5.5%. Which country is the first to reduce their inflation rate under the 2% target? One country has done it. We haven't done it in the US. They haven't done it anywhere in Europe except one of these 3 countries. Is it France, Spain, or Germany? I didn't even put England on there because we had them in a poll question of being over 10% just a month or 2 ago. So just 3 countries to choose from. Is it France, Spain, or Germany who is the first country to reduce their inflation rate under a 2% target? And we're going to go ahead with 62% of you participating in this poll. We're going to stop and end this poll. And here we go. And share the results with you. And with 64% of you participating, 55% of you say Germany, 35 of you are correct with Spain. Spain is the first country to go under 2%. 35% of you correctly identified that, and only 10% of you selected France. So anyway, a little bit on inflation and a little bit about the economy and about all we're going to do on the economy this week. So let's roll along. Thank you for participating in our poll questions, and away we go. So as mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, there's a lot of things that have been going on. We've talked about a lot, kind of slowed down a little bit, but there is a significant amount of winter storm damage from flooding, from winds, from snow, from hail that impacted the Central California region. Kern County, Mono counties were in the disaster declaration, the main disaster declaration that to date SBA has provided over 700 loans and $30 million of relief. And again, tomorrow is the last day to file property damage applications. What you need to do is if you had property damage, and that could be any type of damage to your home or to your business, you can apply through SBA. And they have loans. I still believe I talked with somebody yesterday who was being assisted by FEMA with some property damage and was very happy with the results. So tomorrow is the last day for property damage, and these, even with the interest rates being where they are now, real bargain with these SBA disaster loans. 30 years, low interest rates really have helped a lot of people. So if you've had property damage, reach out that direction. Now, if you were around when we were talking about a lot of the pandemic relief, I was a real fan of the economic injury disaster loan. I know a lot of you business owners told me you like the PPP better. You didn't have to pay it back. You got to pay back EIDL. But there are so many other benefits we're continuing to see with this EIDL loan. And people that have COVID EIDL, you can also get a winter storm EIDL if your business needs it. And I really encourage you to do that. There's no prepayment penalties. It can be combined with other SBA disaster loans, such as the COVID. But there's some real benefits we're seeing. These loans actually can be assumed. So if you're looking down the road to sell your particular business, this is a way of really adding some value to that business because of the low cost of capital that they would actually assume, subject to prior, SBA approval. You got to go through an approval process to do that, as you do with, removing and selling assets if you have an EIDL loan. So really managing that EIDL is really important. That, just the difference between it and regular interest rates, an interest rate on an SBA loan, a guaranteed loan, is around 10%, and that 3.75 over a long period of time makes a huge amount of difference. So please remain in good standing on your EIDL. You can go to our YouTube channel and learn more about EIDL if you have any questions. This was one that we had done in late June, just a few weeks ago, and it was done by the Fresno District Director of the SBA, Don Golick, with able assistance from Mr. Rich Mostert of the Valley Community SBDC. So some of the programs that are available still through disaster, there are business loans. I just talked about the economic injury disaster loans, and I know a lot of you have told me you don't want any more debt. But again, remember, it is over 3 years. And, you know, with a rate as low as 3.3%, it is really advantageous that you really kind of look into that. So home loans, there can be home loans, and also mitigation. We'll be talking about mitigation as we get kind of out of these disaster deadlines, but there's a real benefit for mitigating future disaster. And those are some of the things that we want to look at and let people know that there are monies available for doing that if you are impacted, such as this fine dwelling, White Wolf Ranger Station in Yosemite National Park. And in Yosemite National Park, there it is, White Wolf. And really plays special memories for me. A lot of snow. So with this right now, you know, a couple things to share with you. Just the EIDL issue is going to be our capital quarter for today. I've talked enough about that. Let's hit on the entrepreneurship program for the city of Bakersfield. Try to blow through these slides in record fashion, but there's money available, $1.5 million, 163 grants to start up or for existing businesses in the city limits of Bakersfield. There are several different ways to qualify. All you need to do is complete a training class, have a business plan, receive advising from the SBDC and other groups. You need to have that business located, so there's eligibility requirements and a qualified census tract, or meet the low income threshold that is provided to the particular businesses. If you want to know how you can qualify, you know, we have a really nice video we just put on YouTube. You can go to our CSU SBDC YouTube and get this qualification issues answered for you. In addition, there's other ways that you can qualify. If you are on any of these fine programs, there's a way that you can jump in and qualify. Also, you know, there's the moderate income eligibility, which is a table that will actually assist people. Don't really want to go through the eligibility. We have a slide, but if you are eligible and you want to try to see if you can apply for the city grant, you can call the SBDC, and there's our phone number, 654-2856 here in Bakersfield. Just ask for Iris. She'll probably answer the phone. Or you can email us at sbdc@csubedc. Again, you can sign up then for no cost advising and get a plan for actually getting this together. Get your business plan done, get your advising requirement, and then also we can look at options for training classes that would be available for you. The city application has to be signed off by the 3 contractors in this particular grant, which is CSUB, either the Extended Education or SBDC, or also the Bakersfield College Launchpad or the Kern County Black Chamber of Commerce. There's a great food service management program. If you're looking to go with the food service route, excellent training program. It's one of the best options, and actually the best option if you are going to have some type of food business. That is going to be on demand, very flexible, easy to use. Our SBDC toolbox is here to help you. We have a variety of tools, and why not just stick with our YouTube channel? You'll see, if you look at number 3 over, it's last time Justin was here and he talked about ChatGPT, which is a mere 16 weeks ago, but a lot of opportunities and a lot of webinars that are available for you to go back and see. If you can't catch them live, they're always there. So our community calendar, well, if you're here today, if you're watching this webinar live on July 19th, you are not at the State of the City. I apologize to the city officials last week, and you know, remember, I questioned why they had it during Webinar Wednesday. Another great resource that you're going to want to is the HR resource for business. And next week, the California labor law that is sponsored by a number of individuals We're going to have the individuals that host that next week. We're going to have Melody Correia from the HR Hotline. She's with the California Employers Association to give us an in-depth look at that. You've heard me talk about it maybe for a few weeks or a few months, but really now we're going to get it straight from the California Employers Association and in good detail. And that is next week. And that brings us to our special guest today. And our special guest is Justin Powers, who's making a return visit to Webinar Wednesday. He's the owner and founder of Kernville Cowork up in the Kern River Valley, where it's really, the tourists are flocking in. The lake is rising. It's got to be beautiful up there today. So lucky to be up there, Justin. Justin has a vast technology background, worked for companies like Salesforce and several other tech startups before launching the Kernville Cowork in 2018. He's really grabbed this AI thing by the horns. That would make you a bulldogger in a lifetime ago, or maybe just a steer wrestler, but grabbing that bull by the horns with the artificial intelligence and the various uses. Justin, thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you back. Come on in and take it away.
Thanks, Kelly. I appreciate you. You have the picture from a few months ago when my beard was much longer than it is today. It's been shrinking over time. All right, and you can hear me okay?
Yeah, and you know how I felt about that long beard, so it was only appropriate for today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate being back on the webinar. I really enjoyed the discussion last time, and it's truly an honor to be invited back in. So we're calling this little chat Navigating the AI Landscape, a guide for small businesses. So last time we really talked about the introduction of AI and how it is creating some tools and creating, in particular, ChatGPT that can play a large part in what we can do with our small businesses. But today we're going to be focusing more on the larger landscape and what other tools are out there and how we should be thinking about finding these tools, evaluating them, and incorporating them into our small businesses. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we covered in the previous webinar, kind of what the state is of AI today, where it's come from the last webinar and what's changed. It's a very fast evolving beast, and we're just doing our best to keep up. We're going to talk a little bit about the different parts of your business that maybe you might want to think about incorporating these AI tools and where kind of a lot of the activity is right now. We'll talk a little bit about how to find the tool that you're looking for, the tool that you need. It's not really straightforward. It's a very rapidly changing landscape. So there are some tools that you can use and some tricks that can help you find the tool that's going to work best for you. And then once you've found some tools, how do you choose the right one? And how should you approach that decision? What kind of framework do you need to have to kind of think through about how you're going to manage that? So in terms of what we've already talked about, actually, I guess I do have a short about me slide. I think Kelly did a pretty good job of covering the one update since the previous webinar, and that about me slide that was written last time is, in addition to Kernville Cowork, we've also launched a nonprofit called Sierra Shared Spaces, and we're going to be pushing out more information on what that is and what that's going to look like. But the idea is that Kernville Cowork has been a very large part of providing community development, economic development in the Kern River Valley, and the nonprofit the goal is to help increase the impact we're having both to small businesses and in our community, and also expand our footprint. If anybody wants to know more about that, feel free to reach out to me. As Kelly mentioned, in addition to everything I've been doing with the co-working space, I've worked as a web developer for quite some time. And that's where I'm pulling a lot of the kind of tools and tips and tricks, is not just from what's been happening over the last year with the explosion of AI, but really there's a lot kind of more foundational aspects of being able to choose the right tools and choose the right software that I'd really love to share with this group. And with Kernville Cowork and what we're doing, one of my favorite things is helping businesses find the tools they need and use them effectively so that they can thrive and they can focus more on what you got into business for in the first place, which is solving the problems that your customers have. So if you want to look at the previous webinar, as Kelly pointed out, it was webinar Wednesday 284. It was titled How Artificial Intelligence and ChatGPT Could Help Your Small Businesses. Go look that up on YouTube. There was a lot of information covered in that webinar, and looking back at it, it really actually does seem like it aged pretty well. I kind of skimmed through, and I think everything pretty much still holds. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about what we've already talked about. I will give a couple of quick highlights though. All the same warnings apply. One that I want to highlight again is the field of AI is changing incredibly fast. The technology is changing. The players in the field are changing. The number of tools out there is growing exponentially. But there's also a lot of changes happening in the sophistication of how the technology is being applied. And our legal understanding of how we can utilize AI and some of the legal ramifications we might need to know about before we use them in our small businesses. So keep up to date, do your research, and just be aware that things change. If you're looking at this webinar a few months from now, things may be entirely different than they are today. And one other thing I just want to point out, AI is a very, very broad term. There's a lot of technologies and approaches that are lumped together when we're talking about AI. I'm not going to go into too much effort to try to distinguish the difference between natural language processing versus machine learning versus some of these other concepts, but just be aware that when we say AI, there's a lot of different types. We talked about it in the previous webinar. Go back and skim through that, having an understanding of what those different types of AR, what they are and what they do and how they work is going to help you understand the tools that we'll be looking at in a minute. And just a little bit of advice, crawl before you walk. If rather than jumping straight into some of these more advanced AI tools, if you're still not quite sure how AI works, go play around with ChatGPT. It's free to use, free to play around with. And the more you practice with it, the more you learn how it works and how it responds, the more you're going to understand. It's going to help you understand how these other tools work. One second. And we talked about this a little bit. We're still in the midst of this AI revolution. Things are changing incredibly fast. One of the things that is really accelerating this is the company OpenAI, which is the one that published ChatGPT. They have made it very easy and affordable for other app developers to use their platform, to use the engine that drives ChatGPT, to use in their own products, and other companies are doing the same thing. And so what this means is that you have way more companies, either brand new companies, introducing you have way more companies that are introducing new tools using AI, and more existing companies that are adding AI into their tools. So it's just important to be aware of that there's going to be a lot of new categories of AI tools, a lot of new players hitting the market constantly. And one of the neat things about that is we're seeing new categories being created, use cases that people weren't thinking about in the past, where people hadn't thought about using machine learning or artificial intelligence for solving particular problems. You're now starting to see solutions for those areas. So we're going to cover a lot of them, but just kind of keep in mind if there's a particular problem you're having, even if you haven't heard anybody else mention that there's an AI tool for that, go do some research and see if there's some way that it can be that you can utilize. If there's an AI tool out there that will help solve your use case. As I mentioned, AI tools are being created by brand new startups. You're seeing a lot of new startups that are building off of these tools and built around this AI technology. But we're also seeing a lot of movement in companies that have been around a while that are adding AI features and assistants and tools to their feature set. And it's a really exciting time because it really kind of levels the playing field where it's not just the big massive companies that have the resources to create these tools. You almost have this democratization where smaller tech startups can make these AI tools available for us to use. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what's out there and how to really think about what tools might be out there. The idea is we want to kind of get our just get our creative juices going, have us start thinking about different ways that we can utilize AI within our small businesses. One thing I do want to call out is the importance of connection. Now, I'm a shared space owner. Obviously, personal connection is a big thing. But in this case, I'm talking about whatever tools you decide to use, whatever your toolbox looks like, the more they can connect together and integrate with each other, the more impactful they're going to be. So if you're having to spend a lot of time copying and pasting data from one system and into another, if they're not talking to each other, if there's no automation, that's not going to give you nearly the benefit as it would if you are able to find tools that integrate well together and integrate with other tools. One thing that's particularly important is the ability to export your data. You don't want to be stuck in a tool where you can't get your data out of it or your output, whatever it is that it's helping you with. If it's stuck in that tool and that company goes under, or they change their terms and conditions, or their pricing gets out of whack, or you just find a better option. If you can't keep that, if you don't own it, that's going to be a big problem. And in terms of integration, it's a little bit hard if you're not quite sure what kind of integration you want or what it might look like. But there's a great tool. If you're not using it, definitely look it up. It's called Zapier. And they say on the website, Zapier rhymes with happier. So I know I'm pronouncing that correctly. Zapier is a tool that is specifically used for connecting and integrating different systems. So when you have something happen in one system, it can trigger something to happen in another system. If you're looking at a tool and they have a really good Zapier support, that's a really good indication that it's going to be really connected and really good for integrating with your other tools. So let's talk about what parts of your business can use AI in. A few disclaimers. I'm going to be mentioning a lot of different AI tools. I have not tried all of these. There's a lot of them. There's new ones coming out every single day. It's something that is constantly changing. And in some cases, I haven't found a use case for some. In other cases, I just haven't found the time. And so when I'm listing these examples, these are just examples for you to go take a look at. I'm not promoting or sponsoring or saying that any of them are any better, unless I will specifically call out some that I've had good experiences with. This is really to kind of give you an idea of what the landscape looks like. And again, everything changes so fast. I don't want to focus too much on the specific tools that are out there. What I really want to focus on is helping you to be able to know where to look, know what to look for. If you're not aware that there are tools for a particular part of your workflow or a particular part of your business, you're not even going to go looking for them. So that's what we're looking at today. There are a lot of sources for finding these tools. So some of the lists some of the names I've come up with, I borrowed from other sources. Zapier in particular has some great articles that I use for coming up with some examples in some of these areas where I didn't have a lot of specific experience. So let's talk first about everything involved in your business around content. So there's some great examples of content creation tools. And let me adjust my, there it goes. The text was a little bit small on my end. Hopefully you guys everybody can see this all right. Content creation, you have tools like Jasper and copy.ai that specialize in content creation. There are so many tools in this space. You can certainly use ChatGPT for content creation. We went over that a lot in the previous webinar. There's a lot of marketing tools outside of the creating content specifically. Flick and Market Muse are some I have not used, but they okay, and I'm seeing somebody's mentioning that it's a bit blurry. So, oh, and then the camera went blurry. That's great. So hopefully what I'll do is I'll talk through the slides. Hopefully there's not a lot of text on these. So if anybody has any questions at the end, please let me know. Video creation, and I'm not talking about necessarily about generating brand new videos from scratch. Although there are tools that are starting to become available in that space. You have tools like Descript and Milk Video, which help to create transcriptions for your videos, and you have this really nice interface for being able to use the actual transcript for editing the video really quickly. Those are really, really helpful. You have tools like Runway, Lumen 5, and Pictory. Some of these are starting to get into creating videos from scratch. Some of them are actually generating video. Those are still fairly new. I haven't seen anything that's really compelling in terms of generating brand new novel video content, but there's a lot of tools out there. This is an area that's going to be expanding pretty heavily. And image generation is one of the most fun. I can spend a lot of time in that. My personal favorite is Midjourney. It's a little bit weird to use because you have to use Discord in order to interact with it, but it's a very powerful tool. Another example is DALL-E 2, which is made by the same company that makes ChatGPT. There's a lot of AI tools that are helpful for helping you as a business owner. There's note management and document management. I was looking at Mem this morning. It looks really compelling. It looks really helpful. Notion is just a fantastic tool for document knowledge management in general. It has started to add some AI features that allow you to use some ChatGPT features within Notion. Meeting assistants. So you can have Otter.ai and Fireflies.ai. I've used both of these. They're both very, very helpful tools. They will record, they will sit in on your meetings, record your meetings, generate a transcript, but they'll also, based on what was said, they'll generate meeting summaries, meeting notes, action items, all sorts of fun stuff. It can really save a lot of time. There's some scheduling tools out there. I've used Clockwise for years. They've added some new features since I've last used them. And Reclaim and Motion are some other examples. These help you manage your calendar, especially if you're in a team and you want to make the best use of everybody's time and provide everybody the most amount of blocked off focus time. These are really helpful tools for that. And there's some really exciting tools around research. I'm hoping to use some of these here soon. Gemini and Aomni, of course, those are the hardest to pronounce, but those tools are looking pretty compelling as well. In terms of tools that kind of help you interface with your customers, whatever that means, there's a lot of customer service tools that have a lot of AI features. Especially around creating like chatbots. Customer service chatbots. So somebody comes to your website and they're chatting with a machine. There are so many companies out there doing that. I could only fit a few on this slide, but some popular examples. There's Zendesk. HubSpot is another one. Customer, it's spelled with a K. I know a lot of the founders and the team over at that company. Intercom, Second Brain. There's a lot of tools out there. no reason not to start using AI with your customer service side of things. Slide creation, there's Tome, SlidesGo. I didn't use any of those for this presentation. I'm using a tool called Prezi, and there's a reason for that. I'll get in that in a little bit. Customer relationship management. This is like a CRM style. If you're using a CRM already, there's probably AI tools baked into it, but tools like HubSpot, Reply.io, I'm starting to use and like Folk.app, and there's so many more. So whenever you run into a situation where you're spending a lot of time, you're having to use a lot of kind of mental bandwidth, it might be worthwhile to go take a quick look and see if there's a tool out there that might be able to help you with that. So that's an awful lot to cover. So where do you start? Like, I probably rattled off about 40 different AI tools. And if you were to go and try all of those out, well, odds are you wouldn't actually be working on your business and your customers would be wondering what's going on. So there's this phrase, don't boil the ocean. Don't try and do everything at once. Just pick one or two areas where you really need help and find a tool that's going to help you there, and then start adding So don't try and solve all your problems at the same time. And think about what you would do if you're hiring an employee. By the way, I see in chat, somebody mentioned that the audio went out. Is everybody else still getting audio? If I can get a thumbs up in the chat. Okay. So think about if you're hiring an employee, you wouldn't hire an employee that has all the same skills you have and that is proficient in the things that you're most proficient in. Odds are you would try to find somebody, especially your first few hires, you're looking for people that complement your skills, people that can fill some of the gaps where maybe you're not as strong in, or it takes you a little bit more time. So those are the areas where you're going to want to look for an AI tool, not necessarily the things that you're already super fluent in and super strong in. And when you're thinking about the first few tools that you want to use, I would say prioritize something that's going to help free up your time and give yourself some more mental bandwidth and some more time to focus on your business, focus on your customers, and then maybe focus on what maybe the next tool is that you can integrate. Once you've freed up some time for yourself and your employees and you're able to be more productive and focus on your customers more, then start looking for tools that are going to add more value for your customers and add more value for your business. So that's kind of what's out there. Let's talk about how you would actually go about finding the tools. I listed a bunch, but there's definitely some strategies we can use to help find a tool. Before we look at how to actually go about finding the tools that are out there, some considerations that you definitely want to keep in mind when you're thinking about what tool you want to use, what AI tool you might want to use for any particular use case. And I apologize, this text is very small and could end up being a bit blurry, so I'm going to make sure I read through these. Can you use the output of the tool for commercial purposes? You would assume that all of these tools would provide that, but that's not necessarily the case. Check the terms and conditions. Check to make sure that you are able and you are licensed to use anything that you create with the tool for commercial purposes, if that is important to you. How important are things like privacy and security and stability? If those are some things that are really important, then maybe you need to look at tools that have been created by more established companies that have been around a while, that have a track record of stability and security and privacy. If you're maybe a startup where those things maybe aren't as important and you would rather, you kind of have that early adopter mindset, then maybe you go for the younger companies and the brand new tools that are out there. Are you an early adopter? Are you willing to deal with bugs and issues that might come up? That will kind of help you choose whether you want to go for the brand new companies with these brand new tools that often have very enticing features, Or do you go for a tool that maybe isn't as flashy, doesn't have as many features, but it has a very strong development and support team that's not going to allow bugs to creep into your experience? How stable do I want my tools to be? Do you want new features to be coming out every week and new functionality added in, or would you rather have something where it's dependable and it's consistent, and you don't have to worry too much about having to relearn the tool as new features are coming out? And we've talked about this a little bit. Does it need to integrate with other tools? Is this something where it's going to be part of a workflow where you really do want those integration pieces that we talked about before? And finally, let's talk about now you know what area you want to, what problem you have, what area you want to search for, how do you actually find the tools? So we can start with a very simple search, the way you would anything else. Go to Google or Bing or whatever your favorite is. One trick that I really like, and I think I have this later on, is if you search for, if you have one tool that you really like, let's say it's Notion, then you search in Google, you search for Notion versus, and you'll get a list of articles that are comparing Notion to some of the other top hit tools and apps that are available right now. There's a lot of articles that aggregate these tools. Just a tip, if you're looking for these articles like top 12 AI apps or top 12 AI apps for marketing automation, in every search engine, there's a button up towards the top, sometimes it's under tools, where you can change the options to, rather than finding results from all time, find results in the last month, because this changes so often that the best tools 6 months ago are not the same as the best tools now. There's several app review sites out there that will review apps, compare apps, let you see the features side by side. G2 is one of them. I already mentioned Zapier. They've got a really, really deep list of blog that has a lot of information on it. But you can also just look up the different tools and see what kind of integrations they have and what kind of workflows you can build using Zapier. And if you are one of the early adopters and you don't mind going after the latest and greatest and kind of suffering some of the friction that happens with that, Product Hunt is a great website for seeing the very, very newest and the very, very latest tools out there. You'll have to sift a bit more to be able to find the higher quality apps out there, but you can get some really, really cool tools by looking those up as well. So now you've got some tools identified. Maybe for in one particular field you see 5, 6, 7, 8 that are really compelling. How do you work through those options? As I mentioned before, websites like g2.com are helpful. Keep in mind they're not always up to date. They are often user submitted. They can have different levels of completeness for different apps, and they may not have some of the latest features that some apps have that are now offering. Already talked about this before. Look for these comparison articles. So Notion versus, and then you'll get a lot of articles that'll show you, that'll compare the app that you're looking at to some of the other players in the field. Just when you're doing this, make sure that you're paying attention to whether or not the article is a promoted article. For example, if you're looking at one that's comparing Notion versus Google Docs, and you look at the URL and it's on notion.com, there's probably a bit of bias there. So keep an eye out for that. And don't overcommit. So if you are evaluating a tool, try it out in a safe environment before you totally commit and go overboard. One example is there's some really compelling tools for creating slide decks, and I had thought about using one of those for this presentation I'm doing today, but I didn't want all of you to suffer any issues I might run into with whatever tool I decided to use. So I used one that I knew, one that I was comfortable with for things that are high stakes. And then when I get to use cases that are a little bit lower stakes, that's when I start trying out these tools. Don't don't overcommit too early, and don't let your customers feel the pain of you experimenting with the different tools. Once you've kind of narrowed it down, pick 2 favorites and use the free trials on both of them. Try them out as much as you can. There's really nothing that can teach you more about how much you're going to enjoy using a tool than actually using it and actually trying it. And what I would encourage, if you're having a hard time finding, if there's a couple of tools that you really like and you're having a hard time figuring out which one you want to use, here's the way I rank the attributes of these tools to try and help me get to a better decision about which one I want to use in my small business. Price is always going to be a major consideration, especially if you have a small business. The company, we talked about that a bit. Are they big? Are they small? Do they move fast? Do they have a very strong security and privacy protections? Are they a company that you can depend on in the long run? What is the actual output? Some of these tools have the greatest features, but then when you compare them to other apps, the actual output of what you're getting just isn't as good. So I'll take something that gives me really high quality, whether it's text or images or video or whatever it is. I want something that's going to give me really high quality output, even if I'm missing out on features. We've talked a lot about connectedness. I'm not going to belabor that point. Features. Some of these features that some of these apps are providing now can really change the game in terms of whether or not the benefit that you get out of that tool. So look at the features, see which ones you'd want to use and see how that might affect your workflow. And then in general, the last criteria I have is the overall workflow, and does it have any apps that can help you out? So is this something, if you're going to be using it a lot on your phone, does it have a phone app? Does it have a browser app? Does it have a native desktop app? Depending on where you're going to be using the tool, how is it going to work getting the data into the tool, whatever input you're using, and what's it going to be like getting it out into the next thing you need to use it for? So think about how it's going to be a part of your overall workflow. So I've been spending a while just kind of monologuing now. I'd like to open it up to any questions. What questions do people have? Please use the Q&A feature if you're comfortable using that. Otherwise, we can also look at the conversation that is in the chat. I don't see any questions there. And I see Kelly just turned his video back on, so I'll turn it back over to Kelly.
Well, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Absolutely.
I'll take advantage of this time. The Q&A box is open though, so you can go there as well. But you'd mentioned a few of the AI tools that you use, like you use Midjourney with Discord. Can you give some examples? And also you had mentioned Notion. Could you give some examples again about what you use those specific tools for and how they benefit small business?
Yeah, so Midjourney is for image creation, and I wish I had an example. But what you can do is you can describe an image, and this AI, this server somewhere, basically dreams up an image that is going to look like what you want. So you can say, I want an animated image of a fox running through a field, or you can say, I want basically you can use it for generating kind of something that looks like stock imagery, or you can use it for kind of starting out brainstorming with some graphic design issues or graphic design ideas. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're really used for they're really beneficial for prime time yet, just because they'll often have little idiosyncrasies and little issues that make them make it kind of obvious that it was an AI that generated them. One thing that you'll see a lot of is with any AI image generation, it generally has a really hard time with hands. And so if you see a hand in an AI image, it'll often have an arbitrary number of fingers, for example. but that one can be a really helpful tool. We have some stock imagery on our website, kernvillecowork.com, that is using that was generated by AI and that go in our newsletters. And so if you ever see one of those and you think you can pick it out, let me know. I'd love to see that. Notion is a really good tool if you've been using Google Docs for years, but somebody new joins your team or joins your company and is having a hard time really figuring out all the information you need. It's really hard to kind of navigate and understand how all these different docs connect to each other and how they're related and how to make the most use out of it. Notion is really fantastic for that. If I could have my way, I'd probably only use Notion for everything going forward. But one thing they've added recently is when you're writing a document, just like if you're in Google Docs, you can treat it kind of like ChatGPT and say, please, expand, this, make it longer, generate summaries, generate some action items. But you can also create some automations in it as well to have it automate some text within Notion.
Justin, are there a few that are also like training? I'll call them training wheel AI platforms. I know some people use Grammarly, which I think is a pretty, well, I think you should describe it rather than me, but can you talk about Grammarly and maybe even what Google is doing in the AI field and how soon we might see that in our browser if we're not seeing it already?
Yeah, Grammarly is a great tool for fixing up and improving the any of your writing. Another one that's been really popular and has really I'm seeing a lot of good feedback on is Jasper. Jasper is really good for content creation if you want to have a little bit more of relationship with the computer and co-create content rather than creating a prompt like you would in ChatGPT and it just kind of spits out content for you. There's been a lot of work. The interesting thing about companies like Google and Microsoft / Bing is they've been working on AI for a very, very long time. And they've put a lot of work into it. They just didn't feel like they were at a point where they could release products at the moment that ChatGPT came out. So they're all playing a little bit of catch up when it comes to creating products that use AI, but they're have a lot more engineering tools and a lot more kind of organizational experience when it comes to working with AI. So I would you're seeing it integrated a lot into a lot of their individual products, in addition to kind of the bigger things like Bard. I haven't played around with the ChatGPT style tools from those companies that much yet, but you're definitely going to see some really stiff competition from all of them. And you're also going to see them being used kind of like ChatGPT I mentioned at the beginning is being used as a platform for other startups to create AI tools with. You're going to be seeing the same thing from Google and from Microsoft and from Amazon and a lot of these other companies. They're already doing it to a certain extent.
So we do have a question about cost, both upfront and monthly subscription fees. So, and I guess also to throw into that, how long of a free trial is available on, I'm sure each one vary, but
yeah, and that's
everything vary, but is there kind of a ballpark?
That's a very good point, and a very good question. With all these tools, because there's so much competition, if you're looking at a tool that helps you write a blog post, there's not one or two or three options out there. There are dozens. So ChatGPT might be one, but you also have Jasper and Grammarly and a whole host of others that are really high quality. So there's a lot of competition. So that's a good thing for us consumers and business owners, because there's going to be a lot of price competition as well. So often you'll have very solid free trial periods, usually at least 2 weeks. Every once in a while, you'll see a free trial for a month. But what you'll also see is with a lot of these tools, they really rely heavily on what's called a freemium model, where you can use the basic features for free, but if you want the extra features or if you want to use it more than just kind of playing around every once in a while, they have a free level, and then you only pay for the extra features or for the extra usage. And so oftentimes you can string together a lot of different tools to take care of a lot of your workflow just using the free version of a lot of these apps. Usually when you do get into the paid model, depending on the tool and what you're using it for and how many features it has and how many different areas of your business is trying to cover, they usually start at around $5 to $15 per user per month. But there's a lot of variance there. It's kind of hard to kind of make a blanket statement.
Well, I know that in knowing our Webinar Wednesday audience, when you said that there's an AI slide deck tool, they started salivating. But they also realized that you would also have to train me on that particular AI slide deck tool to improve the quality of my slides. So don't expect that anytime.
I think there's nothing that needs improving, Kelly. I think they're perfect. We've reached the pinnacle.
Well, if text was worth $1 million, would be golden. Okay, well, thanks for that. Let's go through the chat box. I don't see any other questions. Let's see, Maureen has graciously provided not only a welcome, but SBA disaster loan information on the EIDL and the City of Bakersfield Entrepreneurship Grant Program. There's also a YouTube link. And then for those of you that, I believe it's on our YouTube now, we did an eligibility. And really eligibility in the City of Bakersfield Entrepreneurship Grant is really one of the keys in determining, first of all, and it really could take up more than an entire webinar. So I would never do that to you. So there is a 20-minute starter on getting going. And if you do have specific questions, I will get back with you on that, or you can call our office. There's our contact information at the CSU Bakersfield SBDC. Maureen, webinar 284. Well, 284 is today. It's finally I get to see you get one of the webinar numbers wrong rather than me. That was webinar number 268. It was 16 weeks ago, 4 months ago. And there's the link for that. The audio, boy, I'll tell you, way better than last week. That's for darn sure. So also some of the websites, and there's the links for Midjourney and some of the other things that were asked of. Mark had us a comment, use different AI tools to rewrite his copy. And he's looking for an SEO AI. Got any good ones, Justin? An SEO AI tool? I'm sure you do.
That is an area where there are a lot of competitors. I've definitely seen, I've seen a lot. I haven't used any of them in particular, so I don't have any particular recommendations there. But if you specifically search for SEO marketing tools, if you search for top SEO marketing tools 2023 or something like that, you'll get a lot of good ones. But I don't have any particular recommendations in that field.
Okay, and also Maureen added the Jasper AI website that we talked about earlier. There is Justin's contact information by email, justin@kernvillecowork.com with any questions. Also, if you would like to leave a review, you can go to our CSUB business profile on Google. If you have any questions or any concerns or want to see something else in the future, please reply to your survey today that Maureen will put out. Big thank you for not only me, but from others for Justin. And our last comment that just popped in, I will read it right now. AI is major debate amongst members of the Writers Guild. I would think that's part of the reason for the strike. Create AI of actors and writers without their permission. I think that's what the FTC is looking at right now. A lot of reputation and a lot of other things that are being created. And I hope that all of those, do you have any comments on that particular post, Justin?
And that was absolutely something we talked about in the first webinar. There's a whole mountain of ethical questions wrapped up in that a lot of people are working on, a lot of people are thinking about. I think there are definitely major ethical considerations. If you are asking AI to generate, for example, to generate something that emulates somebody else's work or their themselves, or if your all these AI tools are essentially building on top of all the creative work that people have been doing over the last century. And there's some ethical considerations to then cut those creatives out of the process. So we talk about it a lot more in that previous AI webinar. It's something that's very important to continue to have a conversation about, and something very important to keep in mind and make sure that we are supporting the creatives and supporting the the people that have been doing this work for so long.
Fantastic. And I know my employer, California State University, Bakersfield, is definitely looking at that. They're looking at both the challenges from the ethics side in the classroom to the opportunities, all the opportunities. So I think that that's kind of the global issue and the global question right now is balancing ethics and opportunities.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just wanted to let you know that that is the end of the slides and the end of our presentation today. There's what I wanted to get. Coming up next week, July 26th, Melody Correia with the California Employers Association. Any last comments, Justin?
I do see one more question in the Q&A about business owners that have limited tech education. I would say start with the training wheel, start with something fairly simple like ChatGPT. And maybe look at hiring some younger, either younger assistants or maybe an intern that can help you navigate this. There is a large number of tools, and don't feel like you have to understand all of it right away. You can easily start with looking at the apps and the tools you're already using, and see what AI features that they're adding, and use that as kind of a starting point.
Well, that's it. Justin, thank you so much. I learn so much every time you're on. And I every time get motivated to go play around like I did last time with ChatGPT. I will definitely do this again. It's great having you on. We'll look forward to having you back. And until next week, we'll be back with number 285, Webinar Wednesday number 285 on the HR hotline. So for Maureen Busher-Dang, Justin Powers, I'm Kelly Bearden. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.